Hello everyone, Tekken 8 prep continues. We did one Kazama, now let's do the other. Welcome to the Asuka primer. Asuka is one of Tekken's quintessential defensive characters. She has plenty of evasive and crush tools, her counter hits are numerous, and of course, reversals and parries. So if you like overloading on spacing and timing games to catch people swinging, Asuka is your gal. As with our other primers, this video should give you a good quick rundown on the character to jumpstart your learning and get you playing some matches. We will keep the technical lingo to a minimum, but you should still have some knowledge on basic standardized Tekken terms, especially notations and terms for various game mechanics. In other words, this guide is meant for beginners, but you should already know a little bit about the game, just not necessarily the character. If you are brand new to Tekken, check out the resource links in the video description below. I've included several, including a system basics guide that operates as a tutorial for the whole game since Tekken doesn't really have that built in. To me, I think it's incredibly important to go over that before trying to tackle character specific guides. But enough of all that, let's begin. Now to start, in terms of a big low threat, you really only have one that's legitimately scary, down 1+2. It's very risky on block, but on hit gives you a free follow-up for a nice chunk of damage. You can also do it from crouch, which is really important because despite buffs to its range in the past, you still have to be pretty close to use it. One of the most common ways to close that range is with a forward 2 cancel, which puts you in crouch, then you have a little mix up with that and one of your numerous mids, usually while standing 1+2 because it's about the same speed. This situation though also allows you to use full crouch down forward 2, which is a common harass poke, but it stays in crouch the whole time, so if they mindlessly challenge it with a high and you catch a counter hit, you get a lot of damage in return. And this represents her sole scary offensive mix-up, although make note of her other moves that leave you in crouch to try to get this situation. So things like 1 forward down or down back 4, 3 slide forward down back, 3+4 down, back 1 down, back 2 1+2 down, forward 2 down of course, and her toe kick. Outside of this, at least for offense, just get comfortable with her pokes. Down back 3 and down 4 are very common. Down back 4 can be pretty scary too, since she can let loose with the second hit to deter immediate responses. She has a bunch of safe mid pokes like down forward 1, standing 3, down forward 4, down 2, down back 1, back 2, back 4, and so on. If you want bigger damage, you have things like 1+2, down forward 2, down forward 3, and forward 1. 1+2 and down forward 2 in particular are incredibly disgusting because they're still very quick, give full launches on normal hit, but are safe on block. And the last thing to mention, which you may have already noticed, is that you can play some pretty nasty string games against impatient opponents. Standing 3, down forward 1, down back 1, back 2, and back 4 all have enders that give considerable reward if they land. Down back 1 is probably the scariest of the bunch because you can actually confirm the second hit and it splats. Her jabs are a little funky, but her 1-2 is a safe high mid with a couple powerful enders, same with 1-1. 2-1 is a longer range poke, again with some scary enders, so just remember that if your opponent is constantly challenging you, you have a bunch of strings to catch them. She can derive a lot of pressure this way, but otherwise if they're really defensive, just chip away with your down back 3 and toe kick and occasionally toss out that down 1+2. Okay, now for the moneymaker, defense, and we'll start simple. Her block punishing is a bit weak for quick stuff because her jabs are wonky and don't do a lot of damage, and similarly from crouch, her while standing 4 is on the weaker side. That said, 2-3 is really powerful and only slightly slower than a jab, then she can start launching with down forward 2. Even long range, you have forward 1+2 and forward 2, both of which are amazing for whiff punishing as well, especially forward 2. Really make them fear throwing things out at range. You can also throw 1+2 in there too, which is really popular off of a sidestep. From crouch, you have while standing 2-1 and while standing 1-4. Again, she's a little weaker in crouch because her only natural crouch launcher is while standing 3, which is a lot slower than typical, and the absolute best you can do is a crouch cancel into down forward 2, which is difficult and not practical. So she is a little below average with those punishers. That said, her active defense is great. She has amazing crush tools that you can do instead of simply blocking. Down 3+4 is extremely common since it's an insanely quick counter hit launcher that low crushes. It can be ducked, but it's safe on block. Up forward 3 is another safe counter hit launcher that low crushes. Asuka doesn't have a standard hop kick, so you can either use this or up forward 4, which is basically just a slow hop kick. Then you have back 3, which eats up both lows and often highs. On paper, it's very punishable, but because of how far back and low she gets, in addition to potential string follow-ups, it's very difficult for a lot of characters to punish consistently. So in many cases, you'll just get away with it. It's one of her most complained about moves. Down back 2 is another great high punish, especially against jabs. It's not safe on block, but not super risky either. Speaking of jabs, 2+3 is a safe high launcher, but it also parries punches. You also have basically a kick version with back 2+3, which is a safe mid, but does not yield a combo unless you actually successfully reverse a kick. Otherwise, don't forget about her armor move, which we already mentioned as a punisher, but it's also just great to get yourself out of trouble, and it wall bounces. You can even throw sidestep 2 in there for some lateral evasion, and given how quick and safe it is, you can use it as a poke off a sidestep if you want. I would also be remiss not to mention her reversal, which you can hold for an incredibly long time. It is a traditional reversal, so it loses to elbows and knees, as well as the infamous chicken counter, but the hold on it can really trip people up. And this is not an exhaustive list, by the way, so tinker with the move list and use the evasive tools you like the most. Lastly, don't forget about standard counter hits. From an offensive perspective, you can set up your counter hits pretty easily by landing a poke. For instance, down forward 1 is a massive +8 if it hits, and down back 3 is +4. Once you get that advantage, or you just get a really good read on your opponent's timing, you can let loose with things like standing 4, back 4, and down 2. Your biggest risk there is being read back, since these don't typically recover quickly, so if they whiff, you are probably getting launched. But these, along with her crushes, makes it very difficult for opponents to get in or keep up pressure. A few final things to round out Asuka. First, her tracking is actually pretty decent in that she has tools for either direction, but she also has 2 stellar homing moves with forward 4, which is a high but can give a full launch and actually gives advantage on block, and forward 3, which is a safe rangy power mid that can combo on counter hit. Second, she actually has an okay grab game. She's missing a true 1 break, but she does have a true 2 break and a couple of 1+2 breaks, including a full crouch one that gives a full juggle, so don't forget about those. We'll skip juggles, of course, but check out the video description below for a link to some sample combos. And lastly, her rage drive, which is a souped up version of her forward 1. Forward 1 already gives good advantage on block, but her rage drive gives an insane amount. It also gives a full launch on hit and can hit grounded, which you'll see a lot, since in that scenario it gives a free follow-up, so it increases her damage potential by a lot in a bunch of situations, so it's incredibly strong. This brings us to the end of the primer. I'm hoping this information was succinct and helpful for getting a jump on the character, but feedback is always welcome. Be mindful that in-depth discussion for game plans and move attributes will be saved for intermediate guides, although since we have the more robust basics guides already for Tekken 7, true intermediate guides will be something to look out for with Tekken 8. Lastly, big thanks to our patrons. You guys are the best, and that support means more than you know. But to everyone, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.